official start of the how to do the lab explanation. Share my screen, come over here. And again, under the course webpage, if you click on the topic 2 folder, inside of there, there's a lot of these files up here at the top. This lab.py is the one that you're going to be working on today. And so click that. And that'll take you to the contents. You can view the contents of the file here. But if you try to copy and paste this file, oftentimes it's going to skip over like these spaces between lines that end up being important. And so the best way to get the contents of this file onto your computer is there's this raw button right here. You right click and go to save link as, and save that to wherever you put things for the class. And then you'll have the actual contents of the file that you can work with. In order to let's see, I'm going to switch back over to here's VS Code now. And at the top here, you can see I have my lab.py file opened. There's a Python file, lots of stuff in this file, though. If you look through it, it's got something like 300 lines of sort of starter Python code for you. This Python code actually doesn't do anything at all right now. If you press the triangle button up here to run it, you can see that there's no output down here. And that's to be expected. That's what you should have happen. In this lab, what you're going to be doing is, if we scroll down a little bit, there's some functions like, so this first one is called hypotenuse, and your goal is to implement all of these functions so that they do whatever they're supposed to do. And all of these functions should be like really, really simple. I think the longest one of them is maybe 5 lines long. Most of them are just 1 or 2 lines long. So if you're spending or thinking you're having to write up a lot of stuff, or any particular functions taking you a really, really long time, then you're probably going down the wrong track and maybe should ask for help. For each of these functions, the way that you know what the function is supposed to do is in these comments right down here. In Python, we haven't talked about this yet, but one way of making comments in Python, if you want a multi-line comment, is these are 3 little single quotation marks right here. This starts the comment and this ends the comment. And this comment that comes immediately after the function definition, sometimes called a doc string, and a very common practice in Python to use these doc strings to explain what functions do. All these functions have an English language explanation at the top, and then down here, these are called doctests that show what the function does. Again, anytime you see these 3 greater than signs, that means you should think about the stuff to the right as like it's been typed into Python. And so this thing over here, we're evaluating this hypotenuse function with these particular values, the 3 and the 4. And so it's like your normal Pythagorean theorem, 3 squared plus 4 squared, square root of that gives you 5. And so if this is the length of a right triangle, we're calculating the hypotenuse of that triangle. The formula for the hypotenuse given right up here, I'll implement that in a second so you can see what the result's supposed to look like. But in order to actually test this code, we're going to see another way of running Python. So we've seen 3 so far. We've seen pressing the triangle button up here. We've seen pythontutor.com. We've seen coming down here. If you recall, this thing to the left is called the prompt. So this is the prompt right up here. Then right here, we have our Python code. If I type that in and hit enter, that'll take me to interactive Python. I can press Control D to exit interactive Python, or type exit like that to exit interactive Python back to the standard prompt like this. If you're going to be running your Python code, pressing the triangle button, you have to be at the standard prompt, whatever that looks like for you. It's going to be different for every computer, probably ending in a $sign or a %sign, or if you're on Windows, maybe a greater than sign. That's probably ending in one of those 3 things will be your prompt. And then up here, this command right here is saying how you're supposed to run the doc tests. In this class, Anytime you see this $sign in this standard programming practice, everything in this class, standard things that people at Google or whatever company actually using, $sign always means a prompt, something that gets typed down into this terminal screen down here. And for some computers, you will be able to just copy and paste this down here and run it, and it will work. For some computers, you won't be able to. And on those computers, what you'll have to do is, and this procedure is going to work for everybody. So this triangle button up here, the triangle button says run Python. This right here is the command that actually runs Python. And then this thing over here is the file that it's being asked to run. If you want to run this command right here, this Python 3 corresponds to this big long thing of Python 3. This lab.py corresponds to this big long lab.py. It's broken off onto 2 lines, but it ends in lab.py. And so what we need to do is add this stuff right here, this -m doctest -- verbose between these 2 lines right here. I'm going to press the up arrow in the terminal. The up arrow gets me to my previous line. And then notice that I can't use the mouse cursor to click on things if I want to go between these. I have to use the left button on my keyboard. I'm pressing the left button right now, waiting till it zooms over there. I went too far, come back, and now add some spaces. And then I'm copying and pasting this -m doctest right here. And now when I hit enter, it's going to evaluate all of those tests. So what I just did is I'll go through the whole steps again. In order to run the tests on this file, you press the triangle button at the top. The triangle button by itself does not run the tests. In order to run the tests, you have to take this -m doctest -- verbose and put it between these 2 things that are being highlighted, underlined right here. In order to get that command back, you press the up arrow like that. Instantly types it all in for you, then the left arrow to go all the way back between these spaces. Put that there and hit enter. And now it's running all of those test cases for me. When it runs the test cases, what it does is on all these functions, again, here are the test cases. In Python lingo, we call these doc tests. And it's running this line right here and checking to see, does the output of running this line match this line right here? At this point, it does not match because I have no code in this function. And so in order to make these doc tests work, in order to make them pass, I have to add code to this function. In this case, the hypotenuse return a squared plus b squared raised to the 0.5 power. It's just exactly what it says up here, what it's supposed to be doing, the square root of a squared plus b squared. I can save that. And then down here, I'm going to re-go through the steps of the triangle button up here. The triangle button by itself does nothing. Press the up arrow, back over here, all these lefts right here, and then it's -m doctest -- verbose like that. And previously, we saw that there it said 71 tests. Each one of these corresponds to a single test, and all 71 of those are failing. If I hit enter now, it still says there's 71 tests, but now it says 2 of them are passing. These 2 right here are passing. All the other ones are failed. So that's how I implemented this one. As soon as I see that all these test cases are passing, I can move on to the next function. All the functions are arranged so that the easier ones are on the top, the harder ones are on the bottom. So you probably don't want to move on to the next function until you have all these test cases passing. One last thing that I have to say, and then I'll stop and take questions and make sure that everybody has this all working on your computers. But this last thing is that there's a lot of output from this doc test command, a lot of output, and it's more output than is going to be helpful. In order to work on just one function at a time and know whether you're getting that function right or not right, a good thing to do is to comment out every other function in this file. So we've just finished the hypotenuse, the very first function. I'm going to move on to this function is even, and I'm not even going to look at what it's supposed to do yet. Instead, I'm going to comment out everything in this file so I can focus in just on is even. One way of commenting in Python that will be useful for this portion of the lab is to use triple, double quotation marks. So it's the double quotation mark, the normal quotation marks that you use writing essays, triple it up, and that says there's going to be an extended comment taking many lines, and then you put that at the end of the function that you're working on. I'm working on is even right now, so I put the triple double quotation mark right here, and then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, down here, triple double quotation mark like that, save that, come down here. Now, if I press the up arrow again, it comes back with the doc test already provided there. And now it tells me that only the things related to what's currently going on, not any of those things commented out. And so I can focus in here just on the function that's that I'm zoomed in on, this is even function. There's this is even function, and we can try to figure out how should I implement this. The function says that I should return true if it's even, false if n is odd. And so there's a number of ways that you could figure out if something is true or is false. But an easy one is using that percent modulus operator. If n percent 2 is equal to 0, anything divided by 2 that has no remainder is going to be even. So I will return true, because our goal is to return true if it is even. And then if it is not even, it must be odd. So I'll return false like that. Save the file. Here down here, up arrow, rerun. And now we can see that it is saying that all the test cases pass. So when you're working on these functions, maybe let's say I made a mistake here. I only did the return true if this is even. Save that, come down up here. It'll say that there are some failing, some passing. If I scroll up down here, then you can see exactly which ones are failing. It's saying right here is even -8, true. Okay, that's good. Is even -9, expecting false, but it didn't get false, so it failed this one right here. The important thing, yeah, so I've done a lot of things at this point, haven't stopped for taking questions. Most of this is going to be, I'll have to help you all one-on-one in your getting things set up, making sure it's all working. But the important thing is that after you implement each function, you run the doc tests like this, and if everything passed, you know it passed down here because it says whatever number passed, the rest failed, then you're good. You can move on to the next function. Otherwise, you need to keep working on this function until you get it correct. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn off Zoom,